Hello again. 100 billion rand. That's how much the South African economy loses out on every year to illicit trade. Business Leadership SA puts that number at some 250 million rand a day. A new report by the Transnational Alliance to Combat Illicit Trade says the country's long-standing structural challenges have turbocharged transnational crime, severely threatening stability and economic growth. These include unemployment, corruption, and the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic on the economy. Let's talk more about this report now. From the Transnational Alliance to Combat Illicit Trades, I'm joined by Senior Policy Advisor Dr. Esteban Giudici. He's joining me now live from Istanbul in Turkey. Doc, good afternoon. Welcome to today. Just reading a high-level summary of your report, which you've distributed, it just paints this very gloomy picture about South Africa's fight against illicit trade, and its growth is exponential, to say the least.
Hello, good afternoon, Dan. I'm terribly sorry for the background noise. We are reporting from Istanbul, and there is a wedding going on. But here I think I can hear you better. I'm terribly sorry for this. Yes, as you mentioned, in South Africa, the loss is about, well, $6 billion US dollars. That's the problem that South Africa is facing nowadays. This comes from SARS. These are also figures that come from independent consultants. And this has a lot to do with everything that is the non-registered economy, the gray economy, meaning all purchases and sale of products that are done under not regulated markets. This we can see it in alcohol, we can see it in tobacco, we can see it in IP rights, infringement, apparel, footwear, you mentioned, also in pharmaceutical products. And besides the laws on that, everything that has to do with the tax laws, we are having big problems because this kind of problematic is related to organized crime, money laundering, and other egregious forms of crime, as it can be human trafficking. So I believe that you understand that the problems that this represents is not just a financial matter, it's also a matter of security and health. You were just speaking with the Minister of Health of South Africa, if I'm not wrong. And this is a very important issue, that it's also related to the matter of inflation that South Africa is grappling with. Now, as I was mentioning, we are in Turkey working on a similar situation. And I was just in the market, just verifying how things are going on here. And we were in a conference. And I can tell you that here in Turkey, the inflation is rampant, much worse than South Africa. But one common driver for that is illicit trade. That's why we think that it's important to raise awareness about this.
Yeah, to rein in illicit trade, you're going to have to improve governance.
Absolutely. I'm sure that you are familiarized with recommendations of the Financial Action Task Force. They relate to this in the sense that South Africa has a good tradition of law enforcement. It has good laws. They are at the good standards. But the problem is in relation to the effectiveness, meaning that it's complicated to really make the laws work, to implement them. And that this is a matter that is related to governance, to coordination of agencies. For instance, the revenue services SARS with the police services in SAPS. But luckily, in the days that we were in South Africa, we had the opportunity to talk with governmental agencies, and we found that there is fertile ground for further cooperation, and we are looking forward to it.
Yeah. Besides improving governance, I mean, with illicit trade, I mean, the outflows of that and inflows of like illegal cigarettes, you'll have to improve border controls as well.
That's another aspect. But then one thing that is very important to take into consideration is that organized crime is like air in a balloon. If you press in one side, it's going to pop up in another way, in another place. So it's not just a matter of making better controls in customs, because sometimes, for instance, in tobacco, the problem of illicit trade is not only what comes from outside, but it's being produced within the country. And this is because organized crime, they are really fast, they are smart, and they realize how to contour, how to evade the controls. So if we only have one-dimensional measure like enhancing the controls in customs, it's not going to be enough. That's a very important and good measure, but it needs to come hand to hand with other measures of financial nature, enforcement nature, and all the other aspects that are important for illicit trade. For instance, combating inflation in many different ways.
Thank you very much, Dr. Esteban Giudici, Senior Policy Advisor at the Transnational Alliance to Combat Illicit Trade, live to us from Istanbul.